Today, I'm going to explain The Skin I Live In, a 2011 Spanish science fiction and thriller film. The film begins with a maid, Marilia, delivering meals and supplies to a girl, Vera, who is imprisoned in a mansion. Vera requests through the intercom that Marilia bring her scissors and other tools, but Marilia thinks it's ridiculous. Meanwhile, the house's owner, renowned plastic surgeon Robert Ledgard, is giving a speech about the importance of facial reconstruction at an event. He goes to his lab after the event to examine a blood sample he carried inside a package. Following the examination, he returns to his room to monitor Vera via camera footage before going to her room to offer her some opium. However, she notices Vera has passed out and checks on her, discovering scratches on her body. He picks her up and performs surgery in his lab to save her, remarking on how soft her skin is. Vera tells him she'll kill herself anyway, but Robert is determined to make her skin as tough as possible so she doesn't get scratched, burned, or bitten by mosquitoes. He names his invention Gal after his late wife and exhibits it at a symposium. Following his speech, a participant privately discusses his inventions with him. He questions Robert on how he created tough skin despite the fact that human skin is naturally soft, and deduces that Robert used transgenesis on human genes, which violates bioethics. In his defense, Robert claims that the experiment is only done as a personal project and that it is only tested on mice. However, the scientific community forces him to halt his research, causing him to lay off all of his servants at home except Marilia. Robert returns home and closely observes Vera, who is reading a book, on camera. He walks into her room, and she asks him what he intends to do to her. He responds that he doesn't know, and Vera reminds him that she is his, but Robert inadvertently slips out of her room. Robert refuses to believe Marilia's warning that Vera will kill herself because he sees Vera as a strong survivor. While Robert is away, a man dressed as a tiger knocks on his front door. He is Zeka, Marilia's son whom she hasn't seen in 10 years. He has just robbed a jewelry store and demands that she hide him in Robert's mansion for a few days. He also requests that Robert perform surgery to change his face, which Marilia refuses. He sees camera footage of Vera's room and concludes that she is her, but Marilia denies it and tells him to leave her alone. He refuses, ties and gags Marilia, and searches for Vera's room keys. Vera nearly flees when he opens the door, but Zeka quickly apprehends her. She tells him that if he kidnaps her, Robert will do whatever he says. When Robert returns home, he finds Marilia tied and Zeka on top of Vera, so he shoots Zeka. While Robert disposes of Zeka's body, Marilia tells Vera that Robert and Zeka are actually brothers. They had different fathers, Zeka from another servant and Robert from Mr. Ledgard, her master, as she had long served the Ledgard family. Robert was adopted by the Ledgard family and went to medical school, whereas Zeka grew up on the streets and was a drug courier. Zeka had previously misidentified Vera as Gal, Robert's late wife, due to some similarities. Years ago, Zeka and Gal had an affair and were involved in a car accident that severely burned Gal and nearly killed her, but Zeka survived and fled. Robert later found her wife and did everything he could to keep her alive, but one day she looked at her reflection in the windows and was horrified to see her inhumane form, so she jumped out the window and died. Norma, her daughter, was devastated by her mother's suicide and developed an unstable mental condition as a result. Robert sleeps beside Vera after disposing of Zeka's body and dreams of a wedding 6 years ago when he noticed Norma starting to socialize and heal from her trauma. He looked for her because she was nowhere to be found during the dance. He discovered her unconscious in the garden, her belongings discarded. She awoke startled and screaming, apparently mistaking Robert for her assailant. Meanwhile, Vera fantasizes about a man named Vicent who used to work in his mother's boutique. He teased Christina, his coworker, about how she looked great in a flowery dress, but she refused to wear it. He then went to the same wedding as Robert and Norma. Slowly, he approached Norma, and they sneaked out during the dance with their friends. They went to a garden, but he began to harass her. However, the wedding musician began to sing the same song that Norma sang just before her mother jumped out the window, triggering her and causing her to bite his hand frantically. He knocked her out and then left. While looking for Norma, Robert noticed him leaving on a motorcycle. The next day, he set out on his motorcycle to explore, unaware that Robert was following him. At some point, Robert collided with him and drugged him unconscious before dragging him to an abandoned basement and chaining him. Meanwhile, his mother went to the police station to learn that his motorcycle had been found, but there was no sign of his body, leading them to believe he was dead and his. She was convinced that her son was still alive and that the police should look for him more aggressively. Robert paid Norma a visit in a psychiatric hospital because her mind had been disturbed by the wedding party, but she refused to meet with him. The doctor even stated that when he visited her, her condition worsened because she identified him as her attacker. Robert paid a visit to the chained Vicent and brought him food and water. Days later, Norma attempted suicide in the same way her mother had, leaving Robert devastated. He shaved Vicent and drugged him again to render him unconscious in order to perform a procedure on him. Then, with the assistance of his team, he performed a vaginoplasty procedure to change his sex and, over time, changed his appearance to resemble his late wife. Vicent once asked why he would do this to him when he didn't feel like doing anything wrong. Robert revealed that he is the father of Norma, the woman he harassed at a wedding reception. Robert renamed him Vera after a series of procedures. Vicent's sanity was clearly affected by the procedures, causing him to slit his throat once, but he survived thanks to Robert's deft hands. Years later, Marilia returned to Robert's mansion because she was not present when Norma tragically died. She inquired about Vera, to which Robert responded that she was merely a patient who was staying with him. Vera began writing repetitive numbers and words on the wall, and practicing yoga to cope with his depression. Back in the present, Marilia expresses her skepticism about Vera caring for Robert before returning to her room. Vera and Robert make a promise to each other that Vera will no longer be locked up and that she will not leave Robert. She then departs with Marilia to go shopping, while Robert entertains a visitor, Fulgencio, an old coworker. He politely inquires about Robert's health, to which he responds that he no longer feels like performing surgery, but refuses to rent his clinic to Fulgencio. He then dismisses Fulgencio, but he insists on delivering one more piece of news. He publishes a newspaper with his photograph on it that reports on missing people's cases, including Vicent's. He explains that Vicent's mother is still looking for him. Robert refuses to comment, but Fulgencio deduces on his own that Vicent was kidnapped, and Robert subjected him to an unwilling sex change procedure, with his consent papers falsified. Furthermore, he believes that the transgenesis skin research conducted by Robert used Vicent as his subjects rather than mice. Vera appears unexpectedly, having returned from shopping, and admits to Fulgencio that she willingly underwent the procedure. Fulgencio, perplexed, leaves the mansion. Robert and Vera are about to have sexual relations at night, but she admits she is not at ease. However, she recalls purchasing lubricant previously and gets out of bed to look for it. She notices it isn't in her room and goes downstairs to look for it among her newly purchased items. She comes across Fulgencio's newspaper, which clearly shows Vicent's photograph, on Robert's desk. After some thought, she takes Robert's gun from his desk drawer and returns to his bedroom. She shoots Robert to death, arousing Marilia. Marilia, armed with her gun, attempts to investigate the source of the noise, but Vera responds that it was nothing and that she should go back to bed. Marilia bursts into the bedroom, finds Robert dead, and searches the room for any sign of Vera. Vera, hiding under the bed, seizes the opportunity to assassinate Marilia as well, then flees the mansion. Vera hails a taxi to her mother's boutique, greeting Christina and her mother, both of whom do not recognize her. She sobs as she tells Christina her story, even mentioning the flowery dress she wanted Christina to wear years ago before he vanished. Christina cannot believe Vera is Vicent, but Vera explicitly admits to her mother that she is Vicent. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.